I would say the trauma that I went through, the things that I went through, and then becoming law enforcement officer, and then seeing the needs of the community, working in the juvenile court, working, in the criminal court, and then working patrol and working narcotics and all these different areas. I saw the need in the community, and I saw a lot of myself in these kids and in these community members. And I noticed that I was bridging a gap when I was having these real conversations with them.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
Nobody who advocates for change is able to be effective without experience. Going through your suffering and having definitive proof that there must be a better way. Knowing that somewhere down the line, the generational curse must be broken. Mired in your own mental prison has you bear witness to all sorts of ugliness. Feeling the desire to shift the paradigm, you make the first move. Once you break the shackles and run far enough away, you hope to return and free the other prisoners. On the other side of a bad situation, it looks much different. To walk out and never go back for the others would selfishly be a waste of your training. Once you make it out of the valley, make sure you lend a hand to lift the next one up to your level. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content. Now you can join. Follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Danny "BOOKEM" Rivera. I love that name, man. That's a great nickname.
BOOKEM, Dan, murder one.
Yeah. Hawaii 5-0.
Well, thankfully, you became a cop, so the nickname fits.
It worked out.
It worked out well.
Yep.
To talk about the suffering of a mentor, because Danny is now pulling others up from the area that he came from, and that's very important. We always light the torch for the next group of people. Mm-hmm. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police officers, but we do trust them. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. I was just there on Saturday. They're a bunch of good guys over there. So this,
and my father's car's still going.
It's still for now, until he backs into something. So Danny, each week we take a question from our audience. This week's question comes from user 152426. I guess they didn't create a real profile. What is a generational curse that you have broken with your children? You're our guest. I want to let this one go to you, because not all of the way you were raised was bad, but not all of it was good either. Exactly.
Yeah. Great question, user. But what I want to say is love. Very basic. Growing up, I had an absentee father who wasn't there. Was lacking love. My mother was a loving mother in the way where she would work and bring home the bread. But I was lacking love. Nobody at my games, nobody there. And I always tell the kids that I work with, I say, how do you spell love? It's T-I-M-E. Because time. Yeah. You give whatever you love your time. So I didn't have that time and that love. So what I do is I just make sure that I spend time, quality time with my daughters. I have 3 daughters.
Being present, not on your phone. It's a big thing.
Not just showing up to a game or something.
Yes.
Actually paying attention to the game.
Exactly. My daughters are into dance competition. So, I'm there cheering them on. I want them to visibly see me, that I'm actively cheering them, whatever they decide to do, as long as it's positive. And I just think that's a generational curse that, by the grace of God, I've been able to break.
But, time is that one thing. That is the most valuable asset we have. And one year, and I think I said this before on the show, one year I didn't have a whole lot of money. I was a brand new cop, I think, and I made everybody, like I used to do a lot of woodworking and stuff. I made everybody Christmas presents, and I spent a lot of time on this. And I gave it to somebody, and I watched their face, and I said, well, I made this with my time. My time is the most valuable thing. And this guy says to me, he goes, well, money's the most valuable thing to me. And I said, then you're poor. That's what I said. You're as poor as can be.
Great answer.
Mike, what do you think?
My childhood, you've met my father. My father was there for everything for me. My father didn't miss one of my sporting events until I got to college. So,
tread carefully, because this man's going to give you a smack and me a smack. Tread carefully.
Why do you think I'm diverting from this question? No, he wasn't there every day. My parents were divorced when I was young. He was there every day. But I do have a friend whose father was very abusive when he was younger. And now my friend has 3 kids, and they are the absolute love of his life. So
Is this the same friend that I know of? Yeah.
He broke that generational curse. He's involved in everything his kids do.
Now, do you think moving down the line, since he was able to break that generational curse, do you think there's a possibility that his children could fall back into that generation? Because it's like a virus, you know, it might skip a generation.
I don't know, but his kids are such well-rounded, respectful kids. You know, I couldn't see them going that way.
Yeah, I met one of them. You're absolutely right on that one.
Yep.
You know, for me, I grew up in a very repressive, emotionally absent household, and I was struck frequently. There was times I went to bed, you know, tears in my eyes, hurting, but it toughened me up over time to the point where that didn't hurt, but the emotional abuse actually hurt worse, and that's something I try to break with my children. So my kids are getting bigger now, so I don't think hitting them would do any good.
They may hit back.
Yeah, well, my oldest is now taller than me at 14, so yeah, that's going to end up bad someday. But I've never struck them. Never, even when they were little, I never laid a hand on them. I was able to give them a look and calm them down, because I think about the generational curse that I had. I was struck, and it didn't do any good. It actually made me worse, because I always said, if I'm going to get punished for something, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it, exactly.
Make it worth it. Yep.
Yeah,
if I get accused of something, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to make sure I earn it. And I've never laid a hand on them, and I never will lay a hand on them, because it does nothing but builds up their aggression, builds up their fear. Kids shouldn't be afraid of you. They should be leery of you. Don't get me wrong. There's times when you need to assert your alpha attitude in front of them. But for the most part, they should be respectful.
Let them know who's boss.
Yeah, you got to let them know who's boss.
Yeah.
But you know, it's the same thing in law enforcement, too. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be an idiot. You just, let them know that you're in charge. And
well, it's the same thing. It's same thing with a dog. Like, you beat a dog too much, that dog is going to have some serious behavioral problems. And the minute that dog sees weakness, that dog's going to bite. But if you 100%. Treat a dog with love firmly, let that dog know you're the boss.
You're the alpha, yep.
And that dog will do whatever you say. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a nice little barometer on how I like to raise my kids. Not treating them like dogs, don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, they do sleep in cages, your kids.
But they like it. So
I mean, you put a pillow in there, though, right?
Of course. I'm not a savage.
a couple treats.
So, user 152426, thank you for sending in that question. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air.
Thank you.
So, Danny, you and I connected. I think we connected over social media.
Yes.
And I did a little dive into your backstory. I like what you're doing now, and I want to spend a good portion of the end of this episode talking about what you do now. So why don't you give our audience a little window on how you grew up, where you grew up?
So I was born in Jersey City, downtown, the old downtown Jersey City.
Margaret Higg Hospital?
No, I was born in a medical center. The old medical center, before it was down there by Cole Street. Born in Jersey City Medical Center, lived between Erie and Manila, downtown, which, back then it was predominantly Latino, very big Latin community there. At a young age, my father left my mother. I believe, at the age of 2. My mother, had to move to Boston. We lived in Boston for a little while. Obviously, I don't remember that. But she struggled, and
thank God you don't remember Boston.
I don't want to bring up old wounds. Did you ever get the backstory of why he left?
Nah. So I don't want to bash my father, because it took a long time for me to forgive him, and just recently, I found myself forgiving him. And the reason I decided to forgive him, I suffered a lot. No pun intended, but it is what it is. I suffered a lot because I loved my father so much, even though he wasn't there. My mother would always remind me and say, "You are just like your dad." She goes, "You act like him, you walk like him, you talk like him." So she's like, "It's so crazy that you didn't grow up with him, but you act just like him." So, I don't know the reasons why, but my father was, heavy into the drug dealing business at one point. I would like to think that he would want to keep me away from that, was one of the reasons why. But I also do remember vividly that there were many times that I'd be waiting for him. He'd say, I'm coming to pick you up. He would either never show up or he would send somebody that maybe was working for him, or it would come pick me up and take me to him. You know what I mean? I didn't know that at a young age, and I never got quality time with him.
What if you got a message from your father and you started to learn that backstory? Like maybe he got sent away. Maybe he was in some trouble. In order to protect his family, he removed himself from the situation. Would that make your memories a little different of him? He still wasn't there, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what, Kev? I think at that time you're so immature, right? You don't understand that. You know, like you don't understand.
All you know is he's not there.
Exactly. You don't. You know, he's not there. I go to my baseball game. He's not there. You know, I'm playing. I'm graduating from 8th grade. He's not there. You know, all these special events. He's not there. So I don't know if I would, at a young age, understand that. It would still affect me. Now that I'm older, it's funny you say that. I do know his backstory, and that's why I've come to forgive him, and I've come to, I get emotional about this, but I've come to realize that sometimes as a human, we have to take a step back and see what trauma other people have been through and say, well, maybe that is causing them to react the way they are with me.
But that comes with age.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That comes with age. Once you start growing older and you start walking up that hill a little bit, you see the whole battlefield. Where when you're a child, you're down in the valley and you can only see the little skirmish going on.
Exactly.
But so you grew up in Jersey City, regular kid, sports. Like, what was your thing?
Yeah. Didn't grow up in Jersey City. I was there until 4th grade. Then I moved to Bayonne. For the majority, I remember most of my good and bad memories in Bayonne. Played sports, basketball, baseball.
Don't say anything about Chuck Wepner.
Yeah,
the Bayonne bleeder.
Oh no,
Legend.
you don't say that. That's the exact comment that got him in trouble before. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, we had Jerry Cooney sitting in your seat.
And he was upset.
And Mike had said it. Listen, I've heard. I no longer use that name ever because Jerry Cooney's like 6'7" and he's gigantic and he's an ex-professional fighter. That has been removed from my lexicon. But Mike says it as a matter of fact. Like that's everybody knows Chuck Wepner.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, you had to see his face. Now, Cooney's like he's a ball buster, but he lets it go real quick. He didn't let this one go. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I thought we were going to lose him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
was serious, huh?
He goes, I'm offended you said that. I'm like, it's his nickname.
I'm waiting for him to turn it around.
Yeah.
Now, and the tension in this room was never so palpable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. But Bayonne, we got a lot of friends from Bayonne. I think, who did we just have in here from Bayonne? Was it Keith Shibley?
I think Shibley was from Bayonne.
And then we got Tom Smith. I mean, we know a lot of people from Bayonne, and it seems to be a nice little neighborhood to grow up in.
Yeah, especially back then. It was super safe.
Yeah, the big park there.
Yeah, big park, Stephen R. Gregg Park. Man, I would walk up and down Bayonne on Broadway, Kennedy Boulevard. The cops were very aggressive. But you look back now, it's like, it's kind of a good thing.
The cops in Bayonne, I swear to God, they park in trees. Because if you do over 25 miles an hour, you won't see a cop. Next thing you know, he's pulling you over.
Yeah.
They got to come out of the trees, I think.
As a normal pedestrian, you see the bad things of that. But like you said, they had a task. Like they were probably proud of the safety of Bayonne.
Yeah.
I mean, you would hope they were. You would hope this is the reason why they did what they did. Because they're proud of that protection of the community.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So when you were in Bayonne, I know you're a big community-based guy now. Is that sort of how you got this community?
What molded you into your...
Yeah. Is that the community there?
I would say the trauma that I went through, the things that I went through, and then becoming law enforcement officer, and then seeing the needs of the community, working in the juvenile court, working, in the criminal court, and then working patrol and working narcotics in all these different areas. I saw the need in the community, and I saw a lot of myself in these kids and in these community members, and I noticed that I was bridging a gap when I was having these real conversations with them, and the trust was built, right? The trust and understanding once they saw, and then.
But you beat the statistic.
Yeah,
you
I
beat
got
the
lucky.
statistic.
Yeah,
so
I got
it's
a
like
GED.
I think the statistic is like I read it somewhere. It's like 70-80% of incarcerated males come from a fatherless home.
Oh yeah. I'm blessed.
A lot of them use it. A lot of these kids use it as a crutch, though.
Yes,
I used to say it all the
agree.
time.
I agree. I agree.
When I was working, we used to pull kids in, and like, what are you doing? Well, my parents are divorced. Ease up. My parents were divorced too. My parents were divorced when I was 7 or 8 years old. So
100%,
don't use that as a crutch.
There are a vast majority like that nuclear parent family, even if the parents are divorced. But see, your father was always there.
Yep.
It's not
He's
a
always
divorce
a phone call away if I did anything wrong. I know that.
Right. He was always there for you. You didn't have that, and you beat that statistic.
So I do want to shout out, rest in peace, my stepfather who was present.
I was going to ask you if there was a father figure.
Yeah, so he was. So Wilbert Estrella, he was there. He was there for me, man. I would never take that away from him. But he also had his, things he was struggling with, which made him absent in a way, emotionally, right? So I did have a male figure. He did show me how to be a man. He showed me how to have character and things of that nature. But, I still was lacking. And that's, you're right, you're correct. One thing I didn't want to use was like, oh, woe is me. I didn't have a dad. Yep. Oh, I'm going to be a mess up, which I was headed down that road. But I quickly realized that wasn't my destiny.
Well, what kind of trouble are we talking about here?
So when, I got involved, I was a rapper. I'm still a rapper. I still do hip hop music, positive, of course. But, at one point in time, I was really, really aggressive in chasing my dream of being a famous rapper. And in doing so, I was going through a lot. I was homeless. I left my house. I had an altercation with my mother's husband at the time, who was an alcoholic. I ended up dropping out of school, following my rap career. So when I did that, I was in the streets. I mean, I was hanging out South Orange Avenue, Kenmore, Stuyvesant, Brookdale. These are some of the most dangerous areas in Newark off of South Orange Avenue, just to build a name. Because back then you had to solicit yourself. You had to really go out there, and you had to gain notoriety by being in the streets.
And street cred.
Exactly. So I was around a lot of dangerous individuals, back then, late 90s. And I seen a lot of things. I was around a lot of things. I was involved, a couple times where myself and friends got robbed, you know what I'm saying, at gunpoint, fights, different things that I was involved in, and dangerous individuals that I knew were dangerous, but I still put myself in that environment. And I was lucky and fortunate to not be intrigued by it and be like, this is what I want to do.
Was there a moment in one of those troubles that you had that sort of flipped that switch for you? Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be like these guys.
I can't pinpoint, but, there is a story where I one day was hanging out. Be honest, I was smoking weed. I was about 18 years old. We were on a cut block in Newark off of South Orange Avenue. And I was there with a group of friends, and we had just picked up, a friend of ours that came from Bermuda. I didn't know he had a large sum of money on him. There was a robbery. Gun was put to my face. These guys had bandanas over them. And that was a rude awakening for me because, I'd never had a gun put to my face. And everything, when tunnel vision, before I knew what tunnel vision was, I felt like everything was slow motion. I didn't know what was going on. So
and
this
the barrel
incident
was that big.
Yeah. The ironic thing, the weird thing was the guy had it pointed towards me, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at what was going on with my friend, because there was another guy robbing my friend.
That's actually worse because sympathetic trigger, as we know now, you could have got one right in the face.
100%.
Shit, I just shot Marvin in the head type of situation.
Yeah. And this is a story I really haven't told to many people. The people that do know me, that know me and were there, they would, tell you the same thing. But it did scare me. I had a friend come pick me up. I was shook. I'm not going to lie. And I just was like, what do I do now? You know what I mean?
Did you clean out your pants before your friend picked you up?
Yeah, I was wearing a diaper that day, actually.
No shame, man. There's no shame in shitting your pants with gun barrels out of your face.
My God, man, So,
but that's good, though. I mean, so I'm a big believer that you're put in situations that are best suited for you.
Yeah.
Okay, it's your job to identify what the lesson is in that situation. That gun barrel being put in your face, did that sort of start you on a different trajectory?
Yeah. Kind of, sort of. I started going to church. I not because of that.
Thank God he didn't shoot me.
Thank you, God.
All right, God, I owe you one.
I had an epiphany.
I owe you at least one. I owe you at least one Sunday, God.
That's a good one. But no, it was already in the works. You know, I was what they call a lukewarm Christian. I was already involved in the church.
CEO?
What's that?
Christmas and Easter only?
Yeah.
No, I was going to church like Sundays. You know, I was involved in the youth ministry, Hope Center Tabernacle, Jersey City. And I was in the mix. You know, I was going to church, but I wasn't fully in.
Yeah.
And this kind of was like, you know, in church, they always talk about God will send you a sign. You know, something will happen for God to, you know, radically change your heart. And I took this as one of those signs like, this never happened before. This is on a cut block. This neighborhood, you don't go to this neighborhood unless you're from that neighborhood. And I was like, what are the chances I'm there, this happens? So it kind of like took it as a sign from God. Not kind of, but I did.